How many cold calls to get a real estate wholesaling deal? What is up, guys? Zach Ginn here, and in today's video, I want to break down exactly how many cold calls, how much work you have to do to get a real estate wholesaling deal this year, and exactly everything you need to know about cold calling, because I'm telling you right now, most of you guys are cold calling the wrong way for wholesaling real estate success. And as someone who's done thousands of real estate wholesaling deals, have trained hundreds and hundreds of people how to get their first 100K with cold calling. Thousands of people get their first deal with cold calling, and dealing with tons of employees and teaching systems and implementing systems in my own real estate wholesaling business for cold calling. I'm going to tell you everything I have learned and everything you need to know so you can absolutely scale everything up for the best success possible. Before we get into it, do me a big favor and smash that like button and subscribe, and let's kind of break everything down. I think the first thing you have to understand with this question, because this is a very, very common question I get, and I do want to answer this the right way and put the real actual value and the actual information the right way. You got to look at everything about hours versus dials. I think a lot of people really confuse it. It's like, how many dials do I have to do? How many cold calls do I have to make? And really the way I think a lot of people should be looking at it is, how many hours do I have to actually cold call to actually get a deal? Because the amount of dials you do and the amount of cold calls you do is very subjective. You know, you can do hand dialing, or you can actually do regular like 3-line or like buy a dialer, right? So hand dialing, I've seen, you could probably get 30, 35, maybe 40 at most dials per hour. You see me do my regular hand dialing on my Zillow for sale by owner leads, and it's a really good process. It's actually a really good way to get real estate wholesaling deals. At most, you probably get 40 calls an hour, versus if you use like a ZachDialer.com, which is my dialer that I recommend and use, ZachDialer.com, you could probably get 120 to 160 calls per hour. You can drop in voicemails in there, and you're roughly 3 to 4 times more efficient using that dialer versus the hand dialing. So the first thing I can recommend to you, if you have some money to invest in wholesaling real estate, definitely do ZachDialer.com. That is definitely one definition. One thing I could tell you right now, you should definitely be doing. You can drop voicemails in. It works really, really well. Do multiple numbers. The point here is you want to work smarter, not harder. I think a lot of people starting out as beginner, they feel like they have to do this grind mentality, the quote-unquote soul-sucking part of wholesaling real estate. And the truth is that's not the case. I don't want you to go out here to suffer with your cold calling and you just hate it, right? If you work smarter, you can do a lot better. Really, when you look at it, I'm going to show you how most wholesalers, I'm just going to cut to the chase right now, they have to cold call around 25 to 30 hours to get one $10,000 deal. And what I want to do today is kind of break down how many calls per deal per list and everything, but really I want to make you 3 times as efficient, where you only have to cold call 10 or 15 hours to get your first deal. And I think that's one thing I want to break down today, because I can break down how many cold calls for a deal and everything like that, but really that question is a variable algorithm. I know you guys hate algebra class and going back to school and math, but let me give you a quick math equation. Skip tracing plus list plus your script plus your volume is going to, those 4 things are going to be the thing that's going to determine your success in an hour. So if you cold call for 10 hours, it's all dependent on your skip tracing, the type of list you have, your script, and the actual volume, the output, how many dials you're putting out there, and how many contact rate you're getting. There's a lot of variables out here for cold calling. Everyone thinks just how many calls do I have to do? And if you do like a regular call in a high equity list, you're probably not going to get a deal for a couple hours. Like, you're probably going to put tens and tens of hours in, versus if I do like a drawing for dollars cold calling, I'm going to be a lot more effective. So that's the first thing you have to understand. So let's break this down. Skip tracing. What quality deals are you getting from the numbers? So like, what quality numbers are you getting? That's why I recommend use batch leads, code Zach. You can even use like listrei.com for your skip tracing. Zach Dialer has the skip tracing in it too. But like, those are the skip tracing I think high quality is going to help you out. If you're broke, starting out, no money, obviously TruePeopleSearch.com is great. It's like 20 to 30% less accurate and less good quality than batch leads or PropStream. But when you're starting out, you don't have many options. The hand dialing, the Google Voice is going to be fine. I think that's one thing a lot of people really confuse. So what are some good KPIs when we're kind of talking about everything here? I would say for your skip tracing, you want to be around 80 to 90% accurate on these skip traces. If you use like a paid service, you should be there. You're probably 60, 55, 65% on like a TruePeopleSearch.com. Next is list. What kind of list are you doing for success? My favorite cold calling list right now is Drawing for Dollars, government lists, probates. What's a government list? These are your code violations, fire damage properties, water shutoffs, the arrest record, the IRS debt lien lists. I'm not a big fan of pre-foreclosures. Government lists, pre-foreclosures are government lists. You can get this list from the government, but per se, I'm not a big fan of it. I think cold calling a pre-foreclosure is not the right thing to do. I know some people kind of talk about that and say how great it is. I actually don't think it's a good list to be cold calling at all, because these people are getting like loan people calling them, loan servicing companies. They're not answering the mortgage. The bank's trying to get them because they're behind on their payments. They're probably behind on their credit card. They're probably getting the credit card companies calling them. They'll answer texts a lot better. So pre-foreclosures, I'm not a big like cold caller of those. I like reverse drawing for dollars, putting those sticky notes on those houses. Like, hey, this is Zach, give me a call back. That's a lot better. So pre-foreclosures, I'm just going to tell you on this video, like that's a no-go, right? Probates are the best government list to be cold calling. They work really well. So the type of list is actually really important. A high equity list, you're going to need a lot of calls to actually be successful in there. So let's kind of break down like how many calls per se. Let's answer this call question right now. I have the list written down right here. I found statistically from helping tens of thousands of people, technically hundreds of thousands of students, but like tens of thousands of people getting their first real estate deal. Around 500 drawing for dollars leads to get a real estate wholesaling deal is what I've basically seen. You pull the list, you skip trace, you call it. That's probably the pretty much best case scenario. I've seen around 750 probate cold calls to get a deal, 1,000 more or less government lists, water shutoffs, code violations, mostly 1,000 of those calls. I've done about 3,000 calls you have to make on a high equity, just high equity, about 60% ownership, 3 years. That's really how you get that one. Now, you can cut that in half, kind of. Basically takes around 2,000 high equity vacants to get a deal. So as you see there, you got to call these lists probably 3 to 4 times, like overall when you pull these for good success. But overall, that's how many calls you have to do to be successful in there. I would say about a 15% contact rate should be your goal. That's when you call someone and says hello and you actually have a conversation. That's very important. The next thing you have to understand about your KPIs and everything is just make sure your numbers aren't spam. I think that's a big problem I see with a lot of wholesalers, that their numbers spam. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting a good contact rate. I called 5,000 and I didn't get a deal. Well, because you don't have a good contact rate and your numbers are marked spam. Call your own number, or like call your mom and see if it like puts spam likely. If it's not, you can get a new Google Voice number, get a number from like ZachDialer.com, Vumber, CallRail. That's really it. Because when you really look at everything at the end of the day, it's probably going to take 25 to 30 hours. If you watch a regular guru or you buy some guru's course on cold calling, it'll probably take you 25 to 30 hours to get a deal. Maybe you can cut that in half if you use a dialer like really efficiently. But you probably, for one $10,000 deal, probably take you 25 to 30 hours to get a real estate deal. That probably puts you about $200 to $250 an hour you're making cold calling. I think when you really mentally look at it that way, it's going to be a lot better versus if you do it any other way. Door knocking is just, that's the soul-sucking thing. I don't recommend door knocking. Now, what if you do it government lists? You actually go over the list that no other wholesaler in the market. So the average wholesaler is going to take 25 hours to cold call to get a deal. How can you get a deal only doing 10 hours? Well, you saw what I said. High equity is going to be 3,000, but drawing for dollars is 500. So if you want to cut the hours in half, less calls, less dials you have to make to get one deal, it's more efficient to be at like 500, 750, even $1,000 an hour. Get a government list, probates, drawing for dollars, heck, reverse drawing for dollars. You probably get a 30 to 40% contact rate versus 15% on drawing for dollars. That's 3 times more efficient reverse drawing for dollars, which if you go to freewholesaling.com, I teach it out. You can probably be 3 times more efficient with their cold calling, making so much more money. Really, guys, most wholesalers for cold calling get this thing confused that they got to grind. And really what you have to do is you have to work smarter, not harder. And that's not for, you still have, cold calling doesn't work unless you put the work in it. I can't give you the key to success on like, I can't cold call for you and get you deals. You still got to do it. But if you're going to do it, at least do it effectively, right? So if I go to a beach and I'm like, dig a 3-foot hole, okay, that's the goal. Dig a 3-foot hole, and you start digging with your hands, and I give somebody a shovel, right? And they dig it like 3 times faster. It's the same work got done. You just got a better tool and you dug in a better way, right? And that's the way you got to look at it. Like the dialer, it's not essential for success in wholesaling, but like it's like a shovel. Like it makes it so much easier, right? Like it just makes it a lot better. And that list is part of the shovel too. You know, if you have like a cheap plastic shovel, maybe that's like a regular high equity lead, right? But if you got a nice metal, sturdy steel shovel, that's like a drawing for dollars. It makes digging in the sand easier. Like you still have to dig, right? And the person that, you know, uses the shovel like 30 minutes and like is done versus the person with their hands doing it 4 hours, the person with their hands is going to just be better in 4 hours. It doesn't matter. He doesn't even have the tools, but the tools help. And that's what I'm trying to convey today. So guys, that's how many calls or deals you have to do, calls you have and dials you have to make for a deal. You know, it's roughly 500 to 3,000. It's depending on all those variables, skip tracing, lists, and the script and the volume. If you guys got any value from this video, do me a big favor and smash that like button and subscribe. Let me know if this helped you. If it did, go to freewholesaling.com. That's where I teach everything on wholesaling real estate absolutely for free. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys soon. Have a blessed one.